Okay, so this is our going to be our first assignment where we learn a lot about um, shading, and I'm going to do a demo drawing of this apple here and kind of talk you through some parts of it. There's a really good process that I use that I'm going to be sharing with you. And I'd prefer you to go with that process until, probably throughout this semester. And if there's part of it that doesn't work for you, you're welcome to do something else later on. But okay, so what I like to do is let me back up. This is a photo. It's up to you whether you print it out or not. If you print it out in black and white, it's actually going to be a little easier. Let me show you on screen this printed out in black and white. Now, why is this so much easier, the black and white? Well, because you don't have to interpret the colors in gray value. It's already done for you. So you're kind of skipping a step. Now, the good thing is your drawing will probably come out a little better because you're using that little crutch, right, to get from color to black and white. But I kind of think it's good to draw from life, and I think it's wonderful to draw from life. There's a lot of information there, more than in any photograph. And learn to interpret color, because if you're interpreting color in black and white, it lets you understand what value, like how dark it has to be. So I realize that many of you will not have printouts. You'll probably be drawing from your device. Please draw not from a phone. They're much too small. So I'm going to suggest drawing from some type of laptop or a larger tablet so you can actually see it if you're not going to print it out. So one thing that we have going for us here with a photo is that the composition is done already. Like, you know how I mentioned earlier, like we would use this to kind of line up the drawing and figure out how it's placed in our window. Well, this is already done that for us. So we're missing that step. We're not experiencing that step. So, work with it. Understand that we're cheating a little bit by composing this on the page already for you, and that it's good to realize it, and also to make some drawings on your own that don't do that. Okay, so I'm going to start with a I could start with a pencil. I could start with some charcoal. Let me start with a pencil, and we're gonna make a thumbnail. Now, a thumbnail is a small drawing. They give it the term thumbnail because it should be about the size of a thumbnail, and it's going to be very rough and very. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can. Okay, this will let us do a few thumbnails here. So I'm going to be drawing this thumbnail of my apple, okay? And it's going to be really simple and pretty straightforward. That's about the size of it, okay? There's an indent here, and the stem goes off this way. there's a shadow, which is called a cast shadow here, that's being cast onto a surface. Okay, and the darkest part of the piece is going to be right next to the object in the cast shadow, and the cast shadow kind of goes out from there. There's another shadow, and that's the shadow on the object itself, and this is called a form shadow. And now I'm going to talk about edges. And when I'm talking about edges, I mean, so let me give a little example here. I'm going to draw this apple a little bigger. So I'm going to put a form shadow, all pretty dark down here. And then it's a little lighter. Now, edges. The transition from, so this is my shape right here. That's all that I drew, okay? Notice how this edge is very soft, meaning there is a big transition between the light to dark. This is a soft edge. Generally, cast shadows have very hard edges. So notice the transition between this light to this dark is very abrupt. That's called a hard edge. And the transition on this shape from dark to light is very soft. That's a soft edge. Okay. So just keep edges in mind as we're going through things. Now, there's a few more things that we need to point out. This is a cast shadow. This is the form shadow right here. And now this form shadow can be broken down a little bit. There is a very dark part of that form shadow that runs, it moves around a little bit, but for this apple, it's, I'm not sure if you can see the apple. This is, see how dark this is right here? This is called the core of the shadow. And see this light right here? How much lighter this is? This is the reflected light, okay? And then we have a highlight. So a lot of terms here. This is the cast shadow. It is very, so there we must have had either multiple lights or a light with a large surface casting, because this is, see how fuzzy this is? If it were a single light source, we would have a more of a harsh cast shadow. But here's our core shadow running in the middle of our shadow side. And sometimes we need to lighten up, but right here, see how this is lighter? This is our core shadow. And all of this area is our shadow, or our form shadow. And then this lighter area down here, see how this whole area is lighter? This is reflected light. Now, what's it being reflected from? Well, there's a big surface down here of light, and the light is hitting it. So light is hitting all of this without the apple getting in the way, and it's bouncing off and reflecting on the object space, or the object itself, which is nearer to that reflected light. then there's this is the light side, but there's some local value here. There's some, and then there's a little highlight here, which we will not color, or we can go in and pull out with an eraser. That's kind of, let me do highlight. Oops, I'm going off the page. Sorry about that. Okay. So, and so parts of the shadow, and then this is our thumbnail. And what I'll probably do is do just a light value over the whole background. And I'll leave that little highlight empty, or if I've covered it up, I could go in with my eraser and just kind of pull it out. Okay, so thumbnail. So that's one way to interpret it. Another way to interpret it, let's do this over here maybe, is local value. I'll leave a little bit for highlight here. Shadow and core shadow. And maybe I'll do the highlight, but I won't put it in a box. I'll kind of keep it, I'm sorry, not highlight. I'll do this background value, but I'll just kind of keep it a little bit loose, a little bit, okay. Okay, so this might be another interpretation for our drawing, or that might. Okay, all right. So let's get going on it. Let me zoom back out so we can take a good. Okay, awesome. Okay, so I'm doing some construction lines on this apple. And some things I'm thinking about are, this apple is not round. And most apples, you know, almost all apples are not, but there are flat areas. Look how flat this is right here, and here, and here. So I'm kind of building the shape with a series of flat lines. And I think that's, you know, going to be useful. What I like doing as far as when I'm building, let me get rid of some of this value here. Again, keeping the shape really very lightly done with these construction lines, is putting in a line that tells me where the cast shadow is and where the form shadow is. So now it's not just the object. Now we're talking about shadow and cast shadow. So now I'm placing that on my sketch. So there's the transition line for me to tell me, I don't know if you can see that. Wow, not really well. Okay, that's a little better. Yeah, so I have some of these little squiggles that tell me, that's kind of like my own code, like, hey, you need to do a soft line here. And as I'm looking at this, very soft, there's a shadow inside this as it drops into the middle of where the core is. It's soft over here, a little harder on this side, and very hard on this edge. So I'm just going to try to do something similar, and I'm also going to sketch out where, or build construction lines or sketch, where this cast shadow is. Now I realize that this cast shadow is, just to be real specific on these cast shadows, they're usually quite hard nearest the object, but as they go away, they get a little softer on the edge, just as a general rule. And so I'm going to follow that, and I might not make it so soft as what we're seeing here on my drawing, but you can see I'm doing multiple lines to kind of just tell me that there's a soft edge here. Okay, now that I have these construction lines built, one thing I like to do is look at the negative shapes. So when I'm talking about negative shape, I'm talking about what does this shape look like? What does this shape look like here? And this one, and this shape here. Does this look about right? And if it does, good for me, and if not, I'm just going to fix it. That's looking okay for me. Okay, so my next step, the way I'm doing this is I'm just going to go over this with an eraser and pull and just kind of lighten things up and soften and lighten up. Now, this is not the only way to do this. You could build these construction lines with your soft charcoal. But I'd like doing it with a pencil. Sometimes it really depends. So I'm going to start building my drawing here. So I'm going to go over now. While I'm drawing here, I'm just going to talk about squinting. Squinting is a really useful tool when drawing. And what do I mean by squinting? Well, that's when you make your eyes narrow, and which this gets rid of squinting gets rid of detail and just shows you big shapes if you squint down far enough. So squinting here, yeah, I don't see all these little lines in here anymore. I only see some really basic shapes. I see the big shadow here, and I see this, see the cast shadow and the outline of this apple. And that is going to help me and what I'm doing now is trying to get rid of some of my little drawing lines. And squinting is going to help me understand the kind of the essence of the drawing. It's going to help me understand. So here's a really hard edge. This I'm sorry for the quiet here, but sometimes it takes a little bit of concentration to there's kind of a highlight right here. So again, I'm just kind of, so I'm doing some contour lines here that kind of show the shape of the apple, but I'm not going very dark with them. Why? Because this is all in the light area. I'm keeping it, trying to keep it really light. In fact, I want to come in with my eraser and kind of clean up that edge right there, because it's not supposed to be softer. It's just supposed to be, oops, this edge is absolutely like a very hard edge. It doesn't mean that this doesn't have value here. It does. Okay. So I'm going to continue. Now, I realize that maybe I've gone a little bit dark in this area. So I'm trying to lighten that up a bit. And it's kind of good just to have some kind of something down, some value down, so you can start judging it and making, you know, start moving, start evaluating, if that makes any sense. Now I'm making my shadow, and that's a lot darker. It's a lot darker than the light side. And I'm aware of the apple itself. Now there is some light right up here that I need to pull out a bit. Yeah, it's right in this area. And there's, yeah, let me just clean that up. And there's light down here too. So I want to make sure that I capture that. Okay. All right. And the thing is, I mean, we want to make sure that this is, that the light doesn't go unnoticed. So in other words, we want to make sure that this mid-tone right here is dark enough for that light to stand out against. So that's kind of important too. Okay, so we'll continue with the shadow. And I'm mindful that at the bottom of this apple here, there is this reflected light. And I'm also mindful that this area in here is our core shadow, and so it needs to be a bit darker just to kind of help this have a real sense of light and shadow. So here's the test. Okay, if you squint at this, what you're drawing, and then squint at what's going on your paper, and they're different, like the shadows are different, and then fix them so they're not. This one is this type of drawing is pretty easy because you know how it should look. It should look just like what's up here, and if it's not, you change it. Okay. Now I'm going another direction on this to help darken it a bit, because sometimes paper gets pushed one way and it can only go so dark a certain way, so then it's kind of needs to be gone at a different direction to achieve the same thing. It's funny. It's funny how much like life is like that, right? You're like, I just keep pounding on this one way and it's not working. And let me try approaching it this other way, and man, it does work. So just kind of, yeah, finding that. And now this edge is a really pretty distinct edge right here, but it's really close in value. So I need to be careful not to mess with those values. I mean, mess with that edge. That edge is, I need to make sure that apple is kind of a defined edge there. And notice this shadow goes all the way around right there. And I might, let's see what we can do. That's about right. So then I'm just kind of drilling this shadow side, because it's dark. It's dark, dark, dark. It does blend out here at the end, but it's a pretty dark shadow. Okay, so now I didn't breathe that in. Now I feel like we're doing pretty good on it. I feel like it has the same kind of value that we're seeing. You know, the value pattern is happening down here. Let me try to, there's a few little bits here that need to maybe be darkened up a bit. Now, the other thing that I might want to consider is my background. So here I just have an apple sitting on nothing. What I may do is put a slight, so here's where a lot of we can do some interesting things with this, with backgrounds, especially when we're talking so we can be a little creative here, I guess. We want the apple to look like the apple. But we kind of want to give it a place to put it, you know, put it in some setting. We need it to be somewhere. And that's what I'm trying to do here by putting on some type of a background. And here, let me just give you a little tip here. Like this is the light side right here, right? To make sure that feels like a light side, I'm darkening this side just a bit more than I would normally, or than what I'm than what this is showing. This shows the background as all being the same, but I want to say, oh no, this side is light. So how do I show that this side is even lighter? Well, I can darken this background a bit because it shows like it emphasizes. There's a contrast. There's a difference. You know, there's opposite in everything in life, right? So that's kind of the idea here, is that we want to show. Now, this looks kind of glowing over here, and I don't want it to be that way. I just wasn't brave enough to go to the edge. Okay. And now I think I need to like lighten this side up, because I kind of it needs to have a stronger contrast is what. And I'll draw with this eraser, make some lines with it. And I'll just lighten my background a bit. Okay. All right. I think we're doing okay here. Okay, great. How do we do? Yeah, that's all right. So, it's not great right now. I'm going to put a little more reflected light in here. It's interesting, this paper is kind of, it really is very fluid, very, very fluid. So you have to just be careful with it. Just like some people in life, right? They're a little more fragile, so you have to, depending on what you're doing, you have to be careful with them. Okay. Okay, well, great. And what we could do is, you know, now we can go in and maybe make some little marks to show that this is maybe curving a bit here, there. Maybe remember those contour kind of lines? This might be a good time to go in and kind of show that a bit now. Emphasize my edges a bit more. Okay, well, apple in light and shadow. Okay, I think we're pretty good on that. Okay. All right, so what I'll do now is probably go spray fixative this. I might clean up this, you know, clean up all my crap on here. Probably go spray fix it, and then, and then I'd photograph it and submit it. Okay. All right, great. Let me know if you have other questions that come up. Thanks, everyone.